Hello, I'm Matt Gillard, and welcome to another edition of Capital Corner, your news and views surrounding early childhood issues, brought to you right here from your state capital in Lansing. Well, the legislature returned from their holiday break this week to just have a formal session, getting the year kicked off on Wednesday. Then they went to caucus retreats to talk about what they're looking to be accomplishing here in the first few months of 2012. The real news this week happening in Lansing is actually happening right as we film this, the annual Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, where the Senate Fiscal Agency, the House Fiscal Agency, and the Department of Treasury get together, hear from various economists from around the country, actually, and around the state, and determine what their best projections are for revenues moving forward. There's been wide speculation about this year because revenues actually look to be up slightly, which is good news, obviously, for those of us concerned about early childhood, but for state government in general. We've gone through many of these, many recent years past, where revenue projections have come in under what had been previously thought revenues would be, which led to mid-year cuts and other more budget problems. This year it looks like revenues are actually coming in a little higher than what they were projected to be earlier, which does mean a surplus for the state. The amount of that surplus is still to be determined. Tune into the Sandbox Party website or to us next week, where we'll have more information on what exactly the surplus is. And then we can hopefully start to talk about some areas maybe the state could invest some of that surplus in. So that's the big news this week. What's coming up next week is the governor's State of the State address. On Wednesday evening, Governor Snyder will be giving his second State of the State address, where he'll outline his vision on what he would like to see the legislature and the state government accomplish, and what direction the state should be moving towards for the next year. This is a much anticipated event, and you'll be able to watch it in any of your public broadcasting stations or even live streamed over the internet. There's lots of different ways that you can tune into that, or there'll be a lot of media coverage on it if you're unable to watch it on Wednesday evening. A couple other announcements this week of interest. The governor did announce that he'll be presenting his budget plan, or his budget proposal for fiscal year 13 to the legislature on February 9th. This is typical. It's usually done within a month or so after the Revenue Estimating Conference. So with the Revenue Estimating Conference happening now, that makes sense that the governor will put his budget proposal out in early February. With this increased revenues, there's a lot of anticipation on what direction the governor will look towards in moving the budget as we move forward. If you do remember, last year the governor did put out what he called a 2-year budget proposal. Now, the legislature only acted on the piece for fiscal year 12, but he laid out a blueprint for what his priorities or what his direction would be for fiscal year 13. So I don't expect his new plan to be much different from what he had proposed for the next year, last year already, but with this new revenue there will be some differences, and we'll be certainly encouraging the administration to consider further investments into early childhood programs. Also, there was some announcements or recognition made by some of the legislative leaders this week that they will continue to work on the supplemental funding areas that ran into a snag before they went on break for the holidays. If you remember, the Senate did pass a couple of different supplemental spending bills before the Christmas break, and one of them included some significant money for early childhood programs. Those bills died in the House before break, but Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville this week announced that it's his intention and the administration's intention to get a supplemental spending bill through before the governor presents his budget on February 9th. So look for that as well in upcoming weeks here relatively quickly as they try to move the supplemental bill through before the governor presents his budget. And we'll certainly be trying to get some additional funding, the funding that was included in the original Senate bill, at least into that supplemental spending bill as it moves its way through the legislature. Well, that's all I have for this week, but please tune in again next week as more things start to get ramped up here in Lansing.